that the National PTA is the nation's oldest and largest volunteer association working on behalf of children and youth. And I think you have that picture up there, and it's got three women on the right-hand side, Alice McClellan Burney, and then on the left is Phoebe Apperson Hearst, and on the right is Selena Sloan Butler. And those are our founders of the PTA. And it's 125 years this year. So there are a lot of candles on the cake. One of the things that I like to say about PTA is it says it's founded in 1897. And I like to say it was really founded in San Francisco. And they just went to this meeting in Washington, D.C. and brought 2,000 people there just to make sure that it carried on. But it was founded by Phoebe Apperson Hearst, who was from San Francisco. And a lot of the issues that she was looking at, immense wave of immigrants coming into the country. At that time, children worked in factories and mines. We had a lot of them didn't go to school. There was poverty. And it was like, what can we do to help the children? And it was in California, and then the children throughout the nation. And if you look at the quote from Alice McClellan Burney, it's one of my favorite quotes. And that it's applicable today. It says, "Let us have no more croaking as to what cannot be done. Let us see what can be done, and above all, see that it is done." So it means more than just complaining on Twitter about something you don't like. It's about actually getting involved and working with people who are similarly minded to help improve the world. In one of the things that I like to feel like California and the National PTA did, which was controversial, and that is we had segregation in our country, and we didn't have a PTA that included everyone. And Selena Sloan Butler started a PTA in Georgia, and she founded the National Congress of Colored Parents and Teachers. And to the great credit of the PTA, both of those organizations merged, which I think we should continue to feel very proud of. One of the things that I'm going to show you is the structure of the PTA. And that is that we have a national organization that's made up of all the states. And I bet you can guess that there are 50 states. But there are also some representatives from entities that are not states, including the District of Columbia, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and we also have something called the Department of Defense Schools in Europe. And the National PTA sort of coordinates some of the activities and provides resources for all of the states. And California is the largest by far of all the PTAs, and I like to say the strongest of the PTAs. One of the things about California is that when you look at the PTA, you have the state PTA, and then you have the district PTAs. So we have the San Francisco 2nd District PTA. And so if you go to Los Angeles, they call themselves the 1st District PTA, and those numbers reflect the year that they joined the PTA. So you have a 1st District PTA in Los Angeles, you've got a 3rd District PTA in Sacramento, you've got a 4th District PTA in Orange County, on and on, 6th District PTA in San Diego. And I will have a contest with people to see if they can name all the numbers that go with all the districts at some point in the future. Underneath the district PTAs, there's something called councils. Because San Francisco is so small, we don't have councils. But if we were in Los Angeles, let's say we were in Orange County or down there, they have a number of councils that do essentially what a district PTA does, is that they help organize and support the units. And then they provide information and support to the districts. So in San Francisco, for example, we have 62 units, which means units is a word that only I think PTA uses, and it's 62 units. Each unit is a PTA at a school. And you as members of the PTA provide the support at your local school. And I like to think that even though if you look at this structure and it has the national PTA on the top, and then it has the state, and then the district and the unit, I like to flip that structure, because I think what you do at the unit is exceedingly important. And you are the ones that provide the support to the kids at the school site. So if I was going to flip this structure, I'd put the units on the top, and then these other organizations supporting the units. But that's just my particular point of view. So let's look here and look at the districts. Now, this is a map of California, and each one of those little cutouts shows a district. And as I was telling you, if you look, try to find San Francisco, I think we are the teeniest, weeniest district. You can hardly see that little circle where we are. But then you look over, and let's say you look at San Bernardino or San Diego, all of those areas, they cover huge geographic areas. And all of those have councils to help support the units in those areas. What's our mission? When I first joined the PTA, I really didn't know what the mission was. And I was a little confused because I thought, well, PTA is in the school, so it must mean this is only about education. It's about education policy, but it's much, much broader than that. It's to impact positively the lives of all children and families. I think that our mission is really looking to see how we can improve what's happening to our children and our families at our school, in our community, and in our state. And we have helping us, we have parents, obviously, we have teachers, we have administrators, and various agencies that you can coordinate with throughout the state. So for example, if you have an issue of health, you can bring in some outside agency to help provide information. If you have an information about social emotional support, you don't have to do it alone. You can bring in other agencies to help you provide the support that your kids need. And we believe that parents are our children's first teacher, and that we need to work to strengthen our families, get them involved, and recognize that families take many forms and many ways that we can be thought of as families. And it's our responsibility. And I think that this is what, to me, really hits home, and that it is really our responsibility to advocate for the safety and welfare of all our children, the health and safety and welfare of all our children. And that's really why I'm involved in the PTA. I believe that we need to have people who do more than complain, who do more than croak, who actually help make things get better. So let's take a look at the purposes of the PTA. And I'm going to ask you to read these aloud with me. Now, I'm not sure I can hear all of your voices, so I'll read this slowly and I'll listen carefully to see if I can hear you. Our purpose is to promote the welfare of children and youth at home, in school, in places of worship, and throughout our community. To raise the standards of home life, to advocate for laws that further the education, physical and mental health, welfare, and safety of our children and youth, and to promote the collaboration and engagement of families and educators in the education of our children and youth. A lot of times we say PTA, but we say, oh, it's parents, but we have to remember the T in PTA. It's parents and teachers working together to improve the lives of children. To engage the public in efforts to secure physical, mental health, and social well-being for all children, and to advocate for fiscal responsibility regarding public tax dollars in education funding. One of the things you might have noticed if you've been in PTA for a while is that the PTA is always trying to advocate for better funding for our children and our schools. And when I say our children and our schools, a lot of people say, oh, you know, we're only involved in, you know, raising money for parcel tax, or we're only involved in supporting more money for schools in Sacramento, and that money will go down to our local school districts. But really, we're involved in a lot broader things. So for example, in Sacramento and at the national level, the PTA is a strong supporter of a child tax credit to help all families. They're a supporter of child protection through child labor laws, supporter of healthcare, supporter of making sure that our schools have food that's healthy and nutritional for our kids. And so when we look at the full range of what PTA does, it's much broader than just in our school site. Our goals. Okay, now this is interesting because the 2nd District PTA, knowing what the state goals were, said, okay, so what are we going to do? What are we going to concentrate on? And you can have goals too in your PTA. What is the big thing that you want to do? One of the quotes I heard long ago that I always love is that goals are dreams with deadlines, and that you have a goal, something that you want to do, but you want to do it within a time period to get it done. And so the 2nd District PTA wants to support the PTA at your school by providing these kinds of trainings to make sure that you know how to effectively run a PTA. One of our goals is to facilitate better partners in communication and collaboration between parents, teachers, and administrators. You'll notice that over the last year or so, the PTA has been providing these 411 meetings where we bring in people from the school district and from other agencies to talk about how what's going on and how everyone can be involved. Another thing that we've added, and I think it's really important, is to support and advocate for practices in our schools that are anti-racist, that are equitable and inclusive for all children and all families, to increase effective parent engagement, and to celebrate a culture of achievement. A lot of you have teacher appreciation. A lot of you may have programs during your school year that celebrate what your school has done and what your kids have done, either through art or music or various celebrating different cultures. I think celebrating the culture of achievement is really a critical part of creating the community that we need to make a school successful. So, why am I here? How did I get first involved with the PTA? I'm going to play you some music that my son put on my, at that time it was a CD player. If I can reach the stars, pull one down for you. And the idea was my son, who was in middle school, sort of read my mind and realized that I was in PTA not just to help my kids or my school, but I really had a bigger vision. And it was, in a sense, and you might sound a little crazy, but it was to change the world. What can we do in our little world to make it better? And so I got involved in my school because we didn't have any money for a music teacher, and I thought that was wrong. And I got involved with groups of people, and we advocated, and the result of that kind of advocacy was that we passed an initiative in San Francisco. We're probably one of the only, I think we are the only place in California where our Board of Supervisors, our local government, helps pay for music and arts in the school. And that's because of noticing that a school didn't have a music teacher. And I stay involved because, wow, I thought that was terrific. I said, we can do that. We can do a lot of other things. I was the legislative advocate for the PTA for years. And one of the things that I'm pretty excited about is we worked on a bill for 3 years to make sure that high schools and middle schools started later, because of all the research that says it's much better for children's mental health. Children do better, there are less car accidents, children don't get injured as much in sports. There's just like a gazillion reasons why kids need to have school start later and get better sleep. And starting July 1, that's a statewide law. So starting from wanting a music teacher in my school to working on something that can improve the lives of children throughout the state is like the reward that I get from continuing to be involved. So a lot of times we talk about, well, what is the PTA in terms of what we can do and what we can't do? And this question comes up a lot, particularly when, let's say, you want to get someone to help support a program. Do we support companies? We can very happily thank people for donating and helping our PTA, but we're non-commercial. We don't promote the services of any organization. We're non-sectarian, and I think that's very important, particularly today, is that we want to represent the diversity of our communities, the culture, the backgrounds, the political and religious beliefs. And I know when I was on the state PTA, and I had this sort of narrow point of view of, oh, I'm from San Francisco, and here's how people think. And then when I got on the state board, I said, well, that's how people in San Francisco think. People in other parts of the state think differently. And the fact that those different kinds of thinkers and different kinds of values were there makes us stronger. And then nonpartisan. PTA does not support candidates for public office, but we do take positions on issues. So for example, We have taken positions against school vouchers. We have taken positions for greater funding. We have taken positions, most recently, we took a position to protect kids against vaping. So there are a lot of things that we can take positions on. What does the PTA do in terms of help that other organizations don't do? You're here, you know that we provide guidance and resources. We provide a structure and we share best practices. I think one of the great things that we've done here in San Francisco is these different groups of the presidents and the secretaries and the treasurers and the parliamentarians all sharing ideas on how do we do that. I think that's really, really helpful. The PTA provides really low-cost insurance that no one can even get close to that. We provide an organizational structure of advocacy, and as you know, that's where I am. And we want to make sure that we all work together, parents, teachers, administrators. There are a lot of, parent organizations that may take positions that conflict or even speak out against teachers unions or teachers associations in various ways. That's not us. We want to work collaboratively with all of these organizations for the best of kids. We may disagree, but we're not an organization that gets into the nasty spirit of saying bad things about other organizations. We want to support the success of other organizations. One of the things that is good about the PTA, and I think it's sort of like the democratic sense, is that we all get together and make decisions together. And that in order to have a PTA, you need 15 members. You pay your membership dues, and you're required to have officers. So you have a president, treasurer, and a secretary. And the way that the PTAs are set up, you're what's called a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit, which means all of these rules are set by the state in terms of what your governance structure is. Now, I've spoken a little bit too long, but I want to hear a little bit about why you've become interested in the PTA and what you think you want to get out of your participation. And if people could raise their hands, and Melissa, can you call on some people and we can hear why they've joined the PTA?
Sure, or others, if you're comfortable using the chat too, you can put your story into there. Or if anyone wants to raise their hand. I know some of us might have already discussed that in the small groups too. What brought you to PTA? Don't be shy.
I'm just always one to do what other people don't want to do. And so, as I explained in our small group, nobody wanted to be the treasurer. I've heard it said multiple times after taking the role that I don't like that finance stuff, or I don't do the budget thing. So I don't know. That's always been my right role. It's how I got into IT. People don't like computers, or didn't used to. Of course, now we have to. So even though we have to, there's still people that don't like them. But that's why I'm here. It's to do what needs to be done because nobody else wants to do it.
And we've got great comments rolling into the chat for other reasons that brought people to PTA and why they're here today. Thank you for sharing more, Mo.
I think Janet has her hand up.
You guys are going to laugh at me. When I got to Presidio, both my kids went to Argonne, and I was like, what is this PTA? Like, I don't need, why do we need to do that? Because we didn't have that at Argonne. We had a PTO. What's the deal? But I was like, okay, all the things I want to help with, I have to join the PTA for. So I guess I will. And then next thing I knew, I've been on every PTA at every school I've ever been at now, other than Argonne. And really just comes down to, I just wanted to be involved with my kids' school. I wanted to make sure that I was helping get parents engaged. That's kind of how it went. But also now learning that it's such a big advocacy organization across the United States, and how the PTAs have really helped launch all kinds of great programs and practices throughout the country. That's what really keeps me, being motivated to get everyone else on board as well.
You're muted, Melissa.
Thank you, Janet. Fatima, I see your hand is up.
Hi, thanks, Melissa. So just to clarify, I pronounce my name Fatima.
Fatima,
yeah. So the reason why I joined the PTSA was my kids have gone to private schools all their life, and I went through private school. And when we came to Lincoln High School, we didn't know a single person. We had never even stepped through the doors of the school, let alone, because obviously this happened during the pandemic. But the reason why I joined the PTSA, and actually it's kind of a funny story, it was selfishly because they thought I was a student when I walked through the front door, and I was like, I love you already, I'm joining. And so, it was, so that's a good way to make parents join. As a heads up, like, when you're trying to get them to volunteer or do whatever, just say, are you a student? Oh, no. But then you should be part of the PTSA then, because you can understand how the kids can relate. But in all honesty, the main reason why I joined the PTSA was because, as Carol had mentioned, she wanted to change the world. She wanted to make an impact, and what better way to do it is from the ground up. And I felt that because I knew not a single person at the school, how much easier would it be just to learn from the people that have been basically a ground zero making an impact. And I've been involved in the PTSA in private schools like since day one, when my kids were like even in preschool, because I felt that the only way that you can make an impact for your children so that you feel safe and let the children feel safe is by being there and being their advocate, because no one else can be. And so that's why I'm the president at Lincoln, because I want to be able to give that impact and let the kids know that there's always someone that can be there for you, that you will always feel that your children are in good hands every single time. And so that's a huge thing for me. And so every day I go to support the PTSA and I help the community. I never know what the heck I'm doing most of the time, but I think because I have the passion and drive and the knowledge that I'm doing something rather than just sitting there and not doing anything, that's the main reason why I step up every single day.
Thank you so much for those sharing those stories and those comments. I love that you don't, need to be an expert. You just need to be there, right? And I love the extra tip about, giving that youthful comment. That's great. I see one more hand. Barbara, did you want to share? Nope.
Absolutely. So thank you for organizing this. And before I share, I want to shout out to all the guys here. I'm so used to PTSA meetings that only have moms. And yay, dads, thank you for being here. And then no one thought I was one of the students when I joined the PTSA. I've been involved in, like everyone here, I've been involved in schools from the time my kids started kindergarten. But the reason I stepped up this year to become president of our PTSA is because we're coming out of the pandemic, and one of the horrible victims of the pandemic has been the degree of parent involvement in our school. And we have to rebuild. We have to rebuild that community and get people engaged again. And also maybe take this as an opportunity to think carefully about how we want to structure the parent community coming out of this. What can we do better than we've done before? So I think it's a time of change, and change can be scary and exciting. And I would like this to be very productive, a productive time of change. And in addition, we're getting a new principal, and it looks like it might be an interim principal. So this is going to be quite the year at our high school.
Thank you for sharing, Barbara. And I agree, there's lots of excitement, and with that can come some anxiety. And I see lots of comments in the chat that echo what you're saying, just about being involved to help promote that feeling of community. Thank you, everyone. I don't know about all of you, but I just felt super inspired by Carol's presentation on your place in the PTA. She's had such a long history with PTA, and it was, I've known Carol for several years now, but you always learn something new from her every time we connect. So thank you so much for sharing with our group of continuing and new officers and leaders. It was really very helpful. Thank you, Carol.
Just want to make a clarifying statement that I was not there at the beginning.
No, right. When it started in San Francisco, yeah, that wasn't you. Very good. Okay. We are going to move on to the next section. It's called A Walk Through the Bylaws. And Michelle, let's see, I think we probably stopped recording already, but we will start recording again for A Walk Through the Bylaws.